And I do know people that continually seek and seek and seek, for that connection. I really feel for anybody who has never had those. When I worked in the group home for abused kids,
Yeah.
I had one of them when he aged out. He aged out. What are you going to do? You got nowhere
Yeah.
to go. You
Right.
literally have your stuff on the front porch and it's bye.
Yeah.
There was nobody on the other side to pick him up. He ended up on my door because I had him and a couple of the other kids that were in the shelter at my house for Christmas before.
Okay.
And it was, approved and everything. We were allowed to do that. In fact, other staff, we took some of the kids home because they had nowhere to go.
Mm.
And so he knew where I lived. Apparently, he remembered. And I opened the door, and there he was. So he's 18. He has nowhere else to live. And he's sleeping on my couch, for a couple
Mm.
of months
Yeah.
until we helped figure it out for him. But, I mean, it's just so critical. What do you do with these kids that are like this that become adults? And it doesn't end just because you turn 18.
Right. Right.
We have to understand the motivation behind behaviors.
Hmm.
And there's a website, SAFES, Safe's Blogs, states that connection-seeking behaviors are all about a genuine need for emotional closeness and meaningful interaction. These behaviors require parents' precise attention and conversations about feelings, validating their emotions, setting aside quality time, and teaching problem-solving skills are just a few of the strategies that can strengthen the parent-child bond while promoting healthy development.
Yeah, they also say children with attention-seeking behaviors may act out, seek constant praise or approval, or engage in disruptive behavior to draw attention to themselves. Unlike connection-seeking, which focuses on building meaningful relationships, attention-seeking behavior is often driven by a need for immediate gratification or validation from others. While attention-seeking behavior may temporarily fulfill the child's desire for attention, it may not address the underlying emotional needs to contribute to the development of secure attachment with parents.
Based on an article by Wendy, and I think it might be Wisner,
Mm.
What to Know About Attention-Seeking Behavior. Children's attention-seeking behaviors are usually normal and not necessarily bad. Young
Mhm.
children, especially, try to figure out what's appropriate and what's not by testing boundaries. We all
Right.
know that one.
Oh, yeah.
When kids misbehave, it can be a sign of their need for help. To recognize attention-seeking behavior in your children, you need to be attentive to certain signs and patterns. And it says that here are some common indicators. Constant interruptions. Children seeking attention may interrupt conversations or activities frequently, and I know some kids that do this. This way, they intend to divert attention to themselves.
Exaggerated behaviors. They may exaggerate or engage in exaggerated or dramatic behaviors to capture attention, such as loud outbursts or over-the-top gestures or making a scene in public. I think a lot of kids do that too.
I do. I think so.
Yeah.
Some of this stuff is somewhat normal. Just
Yeah.
just normal for being a kid.
Right. Mhm.
Demanding behavior. Attention-seeking children often show demanding behavior, insisting on immediate responses to their needs or desires. I mean, I know some adults that still do that.
Yeah, yeah. Seeking approval. That's another thing too that adults can seek. They may constantly look for praise or validation for even minor accomplishments.
And I think that is that little kid that
Hmm.
just never got fulfilled inside them.
Yeah.
Look at this, mommy, look at this, mommy, and it just was never fulfilled. So it continues as they get older. Competing for attention, they may compete with siblings or peers for attention, feeling threatened by others receiving more focus.
Oh man, I can There was in high school a coach, one of my coaches, which I'm friends with now. Um, and there was a competition between another, we all wanted her attention, but there was
Mhm.
another girl who we had an unhealthy competition for attention from our coach. It was like we were seeking this.
Mhm.
And, and any like it was a back and forth,
Mhm.
so yeah, I can say for sure that competing for that attention too. Um, and attention seeking language, they may use phrases like look at me or watch this to draw attention to their actions or achievements.
Mhm.
And again, like that sometimes it's normal, kids will do
Mhm.
that, but not all kids.
This website says that if we ignore a child's attention-seeking behavior, it can develop unhealthy actions and feelings, impacting their relationships in the future.
Hmm.
Initially, the child might intensify their attention-seeking attempts in response to being ignored. So
Hmm.
there's a high risk of harming themselves,
Yeah.
causing irreversible damage. Moreover, emotionally unavailable parents can provoke feelings of frustration and resentment, causing the child to interpret the lack of responsiveness as rejection.
Oh yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's and I'll be vulnerable here. I have a lot of that where you're seeking somebody to I have what is it called? I'm constantly afraid of well, you have the attachment. So you're feeling like you're going to be abandoned, right? So
mhm,
I definitely I struggle with abandonment issues from, say,
sure.
friends, or I have this cousin who I'd gotten close with, I haven't talked to in quite some bit, and I have to talk about that in therapy because you automatically assume that you're being abandoned.
Because it was unfulfilled, because you
Correct.
would not have that if it
Right.
was. I
Right.
know for sure, because it really does lead to children feeling unworthy and turning
Yes.
into attention-seeking behavior. Um,
Yeah.
Furthermore, the article says consistent disregard for a child's attempts at connection may interrupt their learning process or effective communication skills and emotional regulation. Check, check, check.
Yes.
Check,
Right?
check, check. Every single one of those.
Yes.
I, effective communication skills, not
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
Emotional regulation, never. And my learning and process was like out the door. I mean, it was horrible. I mean,
So
all of those.
did you feel like, so I felt like as I grew and I didn't have, all that, you almost put this guard up. We always talk about putting up the wall and protecting yourself.
Hmm.
It's almost like as an adult, like I felt like I was in this cocoon. So it wasn't, I wasn't able to communicate these things. I didn't have that regulation of the emotions and the things. So I tried to keep myself barricaded where I didn't let people in. And when you don't do that, you
Hmm.
don't have that healthy relationship and healthy understanding of what a relationship,
Sure.
especially in the connections of, well, we'll go parent, because I have to speak on that.
Yeah.
My personal thing is, you've kept people at a distance because you didn't know, like I didn't know how to act. I was so used
Right.
to acting in that defensiveness. One of the fears was like, I don't know how to be. I don't know how to make a connection like this. I'm afraid of
Hmm.
this type of connection. When you grow up without it, you now become afraid of the connection.
Well, that's true. And one of the weird things that I used to do was channel people.
Mm,
I watched people all the time.
yeah.
I mean, as an autistic individual, I think that we naturally do that. I think, neurotypical people do it too. But we, I go into a room and I'm watching everybody to know how I'm supposed to act. And
Yeah.
lots of times I would think of somebody in my current life or past life, and or I had been in their house and I watched how they did something, or they all sat around the table and this is what they did, and then they got up and they all put the dishes and then they swept the floor after, and they all, and I would like take all this in
Yeah.
and I'd be like, okay, this is what we do. you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's really good in a way that we were able to take those scenarios in our lives or the people that made differences in our lives and be able to channel the things that they taught us in
Yes.
order for us to be better parents.
Oh yeah, and I mean, that's my whole entire book and what I speak about is that these things that you would naturally get at home that you would um form these understandings that you would get from a parent, from a mom. I wasn't getting that, and
Yeah,
ended up getting these things from these teachers. Up things you kind of watch, you
yeah.
watch as like, oh, should I be this way? Should I act
I
this
did.
way?
I didn't know how to cook. I had never cooked a meal,
Oh yeah.
ever. I had never done laundry. I had never done any of those things, the
Hmm.
normal everyday things. Um, for me, and I wasn't allowed, I had no depth perception. And
Oh,
even if I was in the kitchen and I poured something at that time of my life, because I really hadn't learned where things really were in a glass or something, now I do know.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
back then, I still don't have the depth perception, but back then, I just would pour. And it
Mm,
would go all over the place or whatever. And she would just say, get out of here. You're making a mess. And
yeah.
I was never just, come on, I'm going to do it with you. Let's do
Yeah.
this together. So,
Did you have with those things, this is curiosity. I felt that I learned um when you were observing other people and you were watching how they did it. I always say I was watching from the outside of the window looking in and always
yeah,
wanting to be the person on the inside. So I
yeah,
felt like as I watched the outside, I had to do those things. And I felt in my mind it was, or I almost told myself, if I just do what they're doing, and that's so we'll call it normal, or that's what you're supposed to do, then I'm
right.
gonna have somebody's gonna want to have that connection with me. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
Kind of weird in that sense.
I like have this visual of there was a family that I felt really connected to, and I was
Mhm.
older at the time. And I remember them getting a family portrait.
Oh,
And I was so jealous that I
yes.
could not be in it. Now, did I know I wasn't a part of their family?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But on the inside, I was living this thing with, that they fulfilled a lot for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know, I guess I wanted them to recognize me, but as that, but not, I think it's kind of weird to say that I wanted them to recognize me as a family member because I wasn't. And
But there's part of you that wanted that, right?
there,
Because
that
you
little
want
kid in
somebody to
me,
see. Yes.
that little
Yeah.
kid in me
Yeah.
wanted that. But again, I grew out of that. I'm so thankful
Yeah.
that I'm just not that person. I adopted all five of my kids. And
Hmm.
they have all handled their adoptions differently. And I was adopted, so, my experience too. So I kind of have well, seven, really, including my sister. But my youngest, oldest, if that's how I can say it, child, um, out of five, she would be my second,
Okay.
and she's 29 now. But she was an amazing kid as an amazing child. And she always wanted connection with me. I mean,
Mhm.
she would lay her head on me. I mean,
Yeah.
she still does when we're together and
Yeah.
just sends me texts that she loves me.
Oh.
And she has my handwriting tattooed right here on
Oh,
her.
wow.
And I have hers tattooed right here. It's in her handwriting. And she drew a sun and a moon. And I think I told you maybe about this in another episode, but it was, it's the sun and the moon. You are my sunshine, and I love you to the moon and back. And she
Oh,
drew this
okay.
little thing, and it
Yeah.
just says Morst. I love you, Morst, because we have this thing about most and more. I love you
Yes, you
more
do.
and most.
Yeah.
And we just would still to this day, whenever we talk to each other, we say Morst.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah, it's a really cool thing. But she, I mean, she went through a lot, and
Yeah.
that's who she is.
Yeah.
We always had a really deep connection. Now, my oldest out of the littles, he is
Hmm.
11 and he has a lot of disabilities. So I think that that might have something to do with it. But he just loves everybody and he wants attention all the time. I
Hmm.
mean, all the time.
Yeah,
So it gets a lot and it is hard when he acts out. And I'm constantly, even as his mom, reminding myself, he just needs me to listen. He just needs me to be there for him, to sing to
yeah,
him because he loves that, you are my sunshine at night. And he smiles over the smallest interactions. And all he wants is love and connection and to feel
yeah.
important. And that's so important that our kids feel important.
Yeah. It's so interesting because you had said that you're in a different place. I thought I was for a long time too. And again, I'll share like because I believe in mental health. I believe that it's okay to ask for help and to go for help. And I started therapy because I wanted to understand I guess what in essence needing to heal the inner child, that child that needs the connection, but understanding now as an adult how to
Mm,
channel that in your connection with your children. Because I have a great relationship with my kids. I have a son who has autism, and there's that boundary that they like. And I'm sure that you have where there's certain things where this is the connection is here. There's still the connection, but it's not like with my daughter who's constantly like over top of me and wants to hear that I love you and wants to hear all that because that's the connection that she needs. That's the connection that she wants. And I want to do better. I
mhm,
do that. I'm there for her, but I know that I could be better as long as, if you're healing those parts of you
mhm.
that, that you were seeking.
I have two more, my two littles,
Yeah.
and one is 9 and one is 8, and they are as different can be.
I met them. Yes, yes.
Um, yeah, my daughter,
Wonderful.
who is in the middle,
Hmm.
I guess she has the middle syndrome. I'm not sure, but she went through so much as a baby that
Yeah.
she genuinely needs a lot of love. She is the one that in the room, no matter what, will be the loudest, will get the most attention, will make sure that she gets the most attention. So, yes, she is an attention seeker if we go by the definitions that we just read earlier in the
Yeah.
examples. But honestly, she is that because she didn't get what she needed as a child. I can
Mm.
tell you, she is the one that if I lay with her, she will just lay all over me. She
Oh,
doesn't want me to leave. She
yeah.
wants to be with me. She really wants the connection and she wants it from me.
Yeah.
Will she seek other in other areas? Yes, but she really does want it from me. And if I say, let's go do this or spend time with me, I mean, she's on it like that. She won't
Mm.
even hesitate. She wants her mom.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that really makes me feel good, but it also makes me feel bad because I wasn't there for her the first 18 months. And there
Yeah.
was so much damage already done by the time I got her. And so we're constantly trying to fill those holes that just, I have it full and it's gone. I have it
Yeah.
full and it's gone.
Yeah.
So it's that constant. But she knows that I really love her,
Yeah.
genuinely love her, and that there's a lot of people in her circle, her teachers, her horse therapist, all the people that activities that we do outside of school, they really genuinely love her. And so I think that she's constantly getting filled. So I hope
Yeah.
that that helps her later. And my 8-year-old, he is actually being homeschooled now
Mm.
because even though I got him when he was 2 months, he had already gone through so much.
Yeah.
And he's also very autistic. Out of my three autistic kids, he actually is the higher functioning one, has the most needs.
Yeah.
And he wants mom, and he just needs. one-on-one. He can't handle a lot.
It's attachment, you think?
Partly, partly, but it really, now that I've been doing this with him, he genuinely cannot handle a
Mm,
lot of noise and a lot of whatever's going on in the classroom.
yeah.
And so it turns into fight or flight,
Oh,
like really fast.
yeah.
And so you can't learn like that.
No.
So he is a genius. I
Yeah.
mean, he reads it, he knows it. He's doing math right now, way beyond the other two. And that could have been part of it.
Yeah.
He's in second grade. Maybe he was bored. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he loves his mom. I am everything to
I
him.
know. I see that. You
I
know,
fulfilled it through my kids. What I
right.
needed with my parents,
And yeah,
I did with them.
I have too, but I think as a there's still something missing, but it's something that's why I go to therapy so that I can I don't want to say accept it, but understand where I am today and maybe more appreciate the connections that I have with certain people and the connections that I have. Like I said, I have all these wonderful people in my life and I am very appreciative of them. And I think that's where it's like I have to understand that a lot of people don't get that, you know?
Yeah. I
And
mean, I needed two things to happen. I
yeah,
needed one to have the kids that I have,
yeah,
including, I'm going to say both of my older kids
yeah,
because I
yeah,
genuinely love both of them. But I needed that. And
yeah,
also needed for my mom to pass away, my adopted
right.
mom
To
to
get
pass
your
away.
closure.
And I
Yeah,
know that that sounds horrible,
no?
but I wasn't able to really become fully who I am until that happened.
Yeah,
So, it allowed me to live, and I was no longer that person looking for attention-seeking
yeah,
behavior,
yeah,
and there was absolutely 100% reasons why I was that person. I
yeah.
lived in fear, and I would say that was that was who I was fear.
That's
And
the
I was
identity.
looking
Yeah,
everywhere. I was looking everywhere to feel safe. I
yeah.
was looking for a person to be safe. And
Hmm.
the second, I'm not kidding you, the second that she was gone and that fear was gone, I was okay.
Isn't that crazy? That's so crazy. But I can understand that. Like, when I started speaking is when I started to realize I eh, that that fear's starting to go away because I can use my voice now and I'm not afraid to use my voice. I think that something that also helps me is that I've gotten so much feedback from the schools, from the teachers about how much they need to hear from someone who has
Mm-hmm,
the lived experience and in that fulfills me.
mm-hmm,
That really gives me that you start like you said, you start to live and I'm starting. So I'm starting on my journey now. So it might be a
mm-hmm,
little bit delayed, but it's okay because
mm-hmm,
yeah, you start to I see that I'm fulfilling these gaps in different
mm,
areas by different things.
yeah.
And I think that that's the most interesting thing too. So yeah, I think I'm getting it in the different areas. And I love this area. I love being able to talk. I love being able to share my story. It almost
Mm-hmm,
releases that weight that you live
mm-hmm,
with, right?
mm-hmm,
That weight of
mm-hmm,
fear. It
mm-hmm.
releases it and allows you to become who you've always been. You've just been like hidden and trapped inside.
Very true. When you're a child and you don't feel safe, or
Hmm.
feel that it is okay or that it might not ever be okay. I mean, what a horrible feeling that it
Yeah.
might feel like it might not ever be okay. It's a scary place to live,
Yeah.
to feel like you can't even go to sleep because you are afraid. First of
Mm.
all, when I had my sister still living with us, that she was going to die because she
Oh.
was being abused next door to me in the bedroom. And I was scared too for my own safety, but also I had these dreams of my deceased dad in my
Mm.
window every
Oh.
night after he died for well, I know it was at least a year, but the same exact dream and after I fell asleep and the same thoughts before I would fall asleep, I believed with all of my heart that he was still alive under the ground and he was coming back and he was going to kill me.
Oh gosh.
And I couldn't tell anybody. I didn't have anybody to talk to about this.
Yeah.
And nobody really seemed to care. I don't know, but I'm not sure. But if a child acts like they are okay
Yeah.
after a lot of trauma or loss, that does not mean that they are. They are just putting on a mask. Alert, alert, come on,
Yeah.
red flags. I just want to say that at my dad's funeral, I stared at his chest. Well, actually, the calling hours or viewing, however you want to say it, I sat there in this one chair. And actually, I mean, here was the room, and then right outside of the room, there was a set of chairs. And
Hmm.
I sat right where I could see him. Nobody was sitting with me. I was by myself, and I just kept staring at him, watching his chest go up and down. I
Mm.
was certain that it was. And I went to my mom, and I'm like, can't you see that he's breathing? It's like, oh, no, he's not.
Yeah.
Dismissed me. I believe I went to one or two other people. Everybody dismissed me and kind of laughed it off, like,
Yeah.
right, no, he's not. But I believed that we buried him alive and it was all my fault. And he found himself out of the grave. He figured out how to get out of the grave, and he really was coming to get me
Oh,
because I let him die in
yeah.
under that ground. So I was petrified after that.
That would scare me. That would scare me. That's a big trauma to go through.
It is that whole time. And then imagine trying to go to school right after that, or
Yeah.
while that's happening. All this stuff is going on in my world, and I'm trying to maintain this sense of normalcy.
Yeah.
Nothing was normal, and I was trying to be the normal in the room. I mean, now my, the day of Thanksgiving, because he died November 25th, 2 days before Thanksgiving. It was a Tuesday, and I'll never forget it. And then here we are on a Thanksgiving, and while they're making Thanksgiving dinner, and I'm downstairs watching the parade,
Mm.
I could hear them planning the funeral. Nobody's talking to me again. Come
Mm.
on, let's have dinner. Come on, let's do this. We just had a normal Thanksgiving. It was so strange. I remember he died on a Tuesday. We had one more day of school before Thanksgiving. Would have been a Wednesday. I got up on my own. I got dressed as if I was going to school. I go down. There's my mom and my aunts are standing there, and they said to me, kind of in a laughing way, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm going to school." And they just all looked at me and said, "Your dad just died. No, you're not."
Mm.
Right? I mean, no, it just doesn't even make sense to me how this was handled.
Yeah. That you were talking about having the mask on when you go through
Yeah.
trauma, you wear it.
Yeah.
When I'm speaking at schools, I share my story. And
Yeah.
you've read the book, you know my story. And
Hmm.
one of the things like I do try to help teachers understand is that a lot of times kids who are going through trauma sometimes will portray that they have this wonderful thing at home. They're not, they're wearing this pretend, we'll say a pretend persona. It's like, I go into the thing where when kids are counting down the days, most kids are counting down the days till they have vacation. Well, the kid who's counting
Right.
down the days who has vacation that's going through trauma is
Yeah.
lying to you. They're counting down because they're about to go through something themselves.
Right.
The
Right.
traumas of not,
Yeah.
and it's something to recognize. I mean, if you have any, hint of somebody going through something, um, you know, kind of recognize that and maybe ask those
Hmm.
questions like, how
Yeah.
are you? That simple question you were
Yeah.
saying. I mean, it's simple.
Yeah, I would count the days until
Yeah.
it was time to go back to school during a break.
Yeah.
So,
That's the same thing. That's the same thing. Because for me, there's the connections. Those connections were only there at
right.
and maybe, with the attention seeking, um, I don't, it's kind of funny because when you think about it, it's like, do you need the attention to get the connection? Like, I need your attention first, come get me. And then once
Hmm.
I'm with you, now let's have the connection. Just,
Yeah. Well,
that's,
I mean, there were people that I kept trying to have connection with. And I
yeah.
can remember talking about the funeral again. I looked up to this cousin of mine and I really liked her. And
Hmm.
again, it was that same feeling that I had with that teacher where I'm trying to say, I like you,
Yeah.
but I didn't do that. But I was just really, I said to her, will you stay at the
Mm.
funeral? She showed up.
Yeah.
She is not quite 20 years older than me, but you know,
Close enough.
yeah. And and here I was 11 and I really looked up to her and I said, "Will you stay?"
Mm.
And she said, "Oh, I have to go to so and so and go do this and that." Like, and I'm just like,
Uh, yeah.
so, those things I tried. I did try. But that's the thing too, you have to realize is the kid who's trying doesn't have the skills
Yeah.
like we do as adults to connect with them
Right.
that I like you or that can you stay? Those were my ways of saying, can I connect with you?
Yes. Yes.
Because I couldn't figure out how to put it in paragraphs.
It's funny. I had and this just comes to my mind. So obviously I don't have communication with my family. But when I did, I had an aunt who's n no longer married to an uncle of mine. But I had the same thing. I was looking so hard for that connection from her that like I remember vividly sitting on a couch and just trying to snuggle up to her just because I felt like that would, you were just looking for that kind of a connection. Like, I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
that that was right or wrong. I didn't know how
Mm-hmm.
to, like you said, you don't know how to say it. You don't know
Mm-hmm.
how any other way. So you do things thinking that that's the way you gain that connection,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Yeah, I did that too.
So I had this ninth grade teacher, and this was not really small. She came to my house and she ate with us and she just cared. And
Yeah.
she made it a point to let me know that she cared. It's really weird. This is really weird. You want to talk about weird? Me, me. I was trying to connect with her.
Yeah.
I'm like embarrassed. What I did was I came dressed as her.
Oh,
I did. I
like was it
started getting
Halloween?
the same hair. I because I have eyes that don't converge.
Yeah, yeah.
And so the eye doctor had said that I could try eyeglasses. So
Yeah.
here I was trying eyeglasses, so I got the same kind that she had, and here was mini her
Yeah.
sitting in her classroom. I'm not kidding you. And it was just because she liked me,
Yeah.
and I thought, okay, I'll be like her.
Yeah.
Because we're trying to figure out who we are, and I
Yeah.
didn't have all these people at home that I could figure out, and I didn't want to be like any of them. So
Right?
and that's part of it too. You're trying to connect because we're trying to grow, we're trying to find our identities.
Yes.
So, and so I just thought, oh, okay, I'll be like her.
Well, it's funny because maybe it'll help you feel better. So it was Halloween though. It wasn't like any other day, but my coach, who I looked up as like a role model, like a bigger sister, you want to be like them,
Yeah.
in this, like, oh, I want to be like her. Because to me, and obviously people have things going on that you don't know, but to me, she had it together. She was this, kind person with a little bit of, whatever. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I just like I wanted to be her mini me, like you did. And for Halloween, I did. I dressed exactly like her, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
so
funny.
I borrowed her, like I think I borrowed her jacket, her soccer jacket. I don't know what it was, but it was my point to do that. And it was
Yeah.
like, yeah, you're kind of like, hey, yeah. So I understand. I mean, it was only Halloween,
You know, we
but
are
the mind, I understand.
we
Yeah.
well, I was a child,
Yeah.
so there is that.
Yeah.
But I
Same
mean,
here.
we're Facebook friends,
Yeah.
and she listens to the podcast sometimes.
Well, that's nice.
And I did reach out to the teacher who
Yeah.
I ran away to her house before. And it might not have been anything, but if for any reason that there is a kid, because let me say this, I did message the teacher who I ran away to her house,
Yeah.
and she ignored it.
I have somebody like that too.
She will not. I'm still that needy kid
Yeah.
in seventh grade that ran away to her house,
Yeah.
and that's how she sees me.
I think I have somebody just like that. And it kills you because you're like, no, see me now. Like I'm not
Yeah.
that. Like I'm this
Well, I mean,
now.
the point that I think that I would reach out to her maybe makes it seem like I might still be that person.
Right.
But the point of it was because, well, I mean, I am Facebook friends with some of my teachers, but it's just, I'm so proud of who I am today.
Yes. Yep.
And I'm so proud of my kids and
Yeah.
where we are. And I bought my own house and all
Yeah.
these things. I'm just, and I don't know. There was a teacher in my past who knew I was drinking and she did nothing. She just kind of still every day would sit with me in high school and not do anything about it really. She knew I was drinking and she wasn't really helping me. And I think I don't know. Should she have done something? Probably. Maybe she thought that she was doing something by allowing me to continue those behaviors, but still remain friendly with me.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that was what she was doing. But I would just want to address that if there is somebody from your past and you are a teacher, an educator, an adult in any form of, relationship that you had with somebody, and they're trying to reach out to you, it might just be a friend request. Give them a chance,
Yeah.
because they might just be that different person. And maybe they want to tell you how special you were to them and what a difference you made in their life. And that's all that they want to do.
That's exactly what I've set out to do. And that was my point too, is to like you, I want to share my successes. Like, hey, I just want you to know those little things I got from you. I'm here now. I've written a different story for my life.
Hmm.
Like you said, I'm so proud of myself. I mean, like I
Right.
am reminded a lot, travel up to New Jersey quite often and I see the area I was in. I know that there are different routes I could have gone down, but I
Hmm.
didn't. And you want
Yeah,
them to say, like, I just want you to know that, hey, I've got a family. I'm doing this. It's
exactly.
like you just want them to see your accomplishments. And I have to be honest, I'm pretty fortunate. There are like I have all these women in the book. Um, Two, I have not been able to find to connect with to be able to say, hey, thank you for those little moments that you didn't know
Hmm.
you had, but influenced me in so many ways. One that just like you, it's no response back, like nothing.
Hmm.
And I know she got the book because,
Hmm.
she responded, I got the book, but I don't know how she took it. And I think I'm
Mm.
the same way as where, I might have pressed it so much that it looks like I'm that needy kid again. But
Yeah.
for all the other women, it was really nice to be able to say that the connections I made with them that they didn't know I made, but those
Hmm.
connections helped me to become the person that I am today, that successful person,
Yeah.
the person who, has I was not supposed to be any of the things that I am today. I was labeled trash
Yeah.
when I was a kid. That's what they labeled me, trash. I'm not trash. I just want you to
Right.
know that, right?
Right. Two things. First of all, right after my dad died, there was a teacher named Mr. Belcher. He's no longer alive. A giant of a man. And
Yeah.
everybody used to say that he would paddle everybody, and there were holes in the paddle, and, to make it sure it went faster.
Yeah.
And, he was the biggest, scariest man.
Yeah.
He, right after Thanksgiving break, first day back, he had been my fifth grade teacher. Now I'm in sixth grade. He went from the fifth grade hallway all the way to the sixth grade hallway, asked for me to come out of the classroom, got down on my level from like 6'8"
Yeah.
down to me, and was looking me eye to eye from on his knee, and said, I am so sorry that that
Oh,
happened. And if there's anything that you need, I am here. And do you know, I never took him up on it because I was just
a
quiet.
kid.
If he would
Yeah.
have kept coming to me and making sure that we had, but he left it in my court to come to him.
Right.
And that's another thing is, as beautiful of a soul as he was, it would have been awesome if he would have tried to continue that with me.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
because I wasn't that kid that was going to go to them and know the words and know how to ask and say what I needed and wanted to talk. Um, so it just never happened. But I ran into him several times as an adult, and he always asked me how I was, how my
Yeah.
mom was. And, it was really, he was just a really great man. And I'll never forget him because of that. But the other side of it is, I used to feel guilty for being that kid,
Mm.
guilty. And I was ashamed of who I was. But now that I've got degrees and all of this stuff, and have worked in battered women's shelters and women, and with women who have been raped, and with abused kids and shelters, and worked in the jail, a lot about being on that other side has taught me how people like that, like me, tick, who have been denied their basic need of being loved,
Hmm.
needed and made to feel important and a part of, and part of a family. That sense of belonging is what we just are looking for. It's a sense of belonging.
Yes.
It's just so important.
Yeah. Oh, belonging is such a perfect thing. Yeah, absolutely. Because you don't know where you fall when you're, in the
How,
life of trauma.
how in the world could we have gone through what we did as a kid and
Mm.
then come out of it at the same time that I know me, and you probably did too, felt guilty for having those needs. I felt
Oh,
guilty for it.
yeah, absolutely. I still struggle with that too. Like I still struggle with that. I don't know.
Right.
You are so much more ahead of me than where I am, but I'm
I'm
getting there.
older. I'm
Yeah, I know,
older.
but I'm getting there. I'm gonna get there.
Yeah.
Since our friendship, I could say that I've grown so much more too by being able to see, listening to you and seeing where you were and seeing how these different things have changed you, helped open my mind to a lot of
Mhm.
different things where I recognize I'm like, God, I really, have come this way. But yeah, that belonging, I think sometimes that's gosh, that really is one of those things that I remember going through school trying to figure out where I belonged. And the guilt of um it's almost a shameful thing. I don't even know if I would call it guilty, but I felt ashamed and embarrassed that I had these
There
needs.
was embarrassment
Yeah,
for sure.
I think for me that was probably the biggest thing. I think I, can look back even now thinking about it and saying,
Well,
yeah, I
I
was
looked at my peers
yeah,
who had both parents,
right.
who, I didn't see the dysfunction in their families, which I'm sure that maybe they did, but back
Mm,
then it was different.
right.
People really didn't come out with their dysfunction like they do now. Um,
Yeah.
and everybody has dysfunction. But back then, everybody was made to feel like they had the perfect family.
And
And
that's where our guard goes up, right? That mask.
sure, and you genuinely were made to feel as if there was something wrong with you because
Yes.
you had these basic needs.
Yes.
So, but I don't feel ashamed like I used to.
Yeah.
The first 30 years of horrible decision making,
Hmm.
because I figured it out, and I understand that those who are in those same situations, I look and I understand them. I really do. I get it. I look at two of my youngers and especially look at their acting out behaviors, and I know that all they need is some extra love
Hmm.
24 hours a day, but they just need some extra love right now because they just do. They just need it. And that's not a bad thing. That is
No.
how we're wired. Like I said at the very beginning, that's how God made us. And I really believe that that's just who we are and what we need. I don't feel ashamed anymore because there is no one who would have been healthier. I mean, if you look at everything I went through, what you went through,
Yeah.
and me also as an autistic individual who lacked communication skills,
Yeah.
and then you add the layer of adoption, you add the layer of trauma, you add the layer of my sister, of my mom, of the whatever. I mean, there was so much more that I haven't even
Yeah.
mentioned, but layers and layers and layers, and the lying and the deceit. And, honestly, all it shows is how strong I really was.
Yeah.
We are strong and we're not weak to need connection with people outside of our immediate family if all we're doing is just trying to seek a basic need.
Yeah. You know what? I constantly remind myself that it wasn't my fault that I needed those things. But yeah, when you go into you feel guilty about it, that you had it,
Mm,
it's not my fault. I have to tell myself sometimes because that helps relieve that, embarrassment and shame that I've lived with for so long.
mhm.
And to tell yourself, like, it's not your fault. And look at, yeah, look where we've come. I mean, think about all those missed opportunities or missed connections that now today we can say, where we're at now. It,
Proudly.
yeah, yeah. I mean, listen, I'm still going to constantly work on myself. I do believe that. I think, it's a learning and growth thing. I'm not where I want to be, but I'm definitely not where I used to be. Feel myself saying, reminding myself that it's not your fault, the things that happen to you.
That's
It's
awesome.
not your fault.
That's
Yeah. Yeah, you give yourself permission to understand that.
We gave ourselves permission, but I think if we know somebody who needs to hear it,
Yeah.
it's not your fault. And it
No.
takes me always back to that scene in Good Will Hunting.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And
Yeah.
Robin Williams is just, it's not your fault. I know.
Right.
It's not your fault. I know. It's not
Yeah,
your fault.
yeah.
You know, because he finally broke when
Yeah.
he realized that it wasn't his fault. And we really do own so much of what happens to us as kids.
Yeah. 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 It's like I said, for me, it's been you feel like embarrassed that you had those needs, but it wasn't your fault that you had them.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you, Denise, for being on. We here at Real Talk want to help you to know that you do not need to feel shame or guilt. If you were that kid that needed extra love as a child, and if you know a kid or an adult who needs that extra little bit of love, maybe find out why.
Hmm.
Sit down with them, and maybe you are having your heartstrings tugged. And if you are there might be a reason that you're in front of them, and maybe you just might be that person. So I'll tell you, it doesn't take a lot. It might seem like a child is a lot, but it doesn't take a lot to fulfill what they need. I mean, yes, it does, but not it,
Right.
but in the moment, just
It
be in the
doesn't.
moment, be
Yeah.
in the moment, and it's not. Some might need more and more and more, but that might mean that there is just a lot of hurt. And once that stability is there, and once they feel loved and important, some of those behaviors might subside. And I have heard a word keep coming up with me, and that was the word important. And I think it's because recently my son said to me, he's doing something with drums, and he's amazing at drums, and he struggles with everything in life. And he said, it makes me feel important.
Oh,
Isn't that awesome?
that is awesome. Because we want to feel important. We want to
That's
know
it.
something. Yeah.
That's it. I mean, he has everything against him, but drums make him feel important. So no matter what, we figure out how to get the drums because I want him to pursue that.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. So I want to thank you, Denise, for being on, and I want to thank everybody out there for listening because these topics are real and they're hard. And that's what we do at Real Talk is we get raw. And I really appreciate each and every one of you for listening, and I hope that you can take it with you and you can share it with somebody else. So thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.